To say that he wouldn't finish in the top 10, I think that's a little crazy because he's just so versatile. He's a home run hitter.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tyler from Aspire Sports, and today I have a special guest with me. I have my real life homie, Giggs, the best Moira player in the world. Yo, what's up, Giggs, and how you doing? And thanks so much for being a part of the show.
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be on, and I'm looking forward to talking some football, fantasy football.
So, right now we're just gonna get right into the first segment. So let's do it. We got Terry McLaurin. We're gonna be talking about Terry McLaurin. We'll be talking about Debo, J.K. Dobbins, and the Lions. Looking at the fantasy because you're obviously a Lions fan. So we're gonna be talking about the Lions and fantasy producers on that team. So, but first thing that we're gonna talk about is Terry McLaurin. And you had Ron Rivera come out and say that they're not interested in trading Terry McLaurin. Well, right now he wants a new deal. And you have these wide receivers that are getting paid a bunch of money right now. Terry McLaurin, I think, is worth resetting the market because I think he's that good of a player. He's produced with terrible quarterbacks. He's just been a beast. So at some point, it's either they gotta decide. It's either you trade him or you just don't pay him, and he's probably gonna walk a free agency. So if they do trade him, what are the top landing spots? Give me a couple of landing spots that you could see him being traded to.
Well, I'm going to start with the Colts because they're kind of like in a win now mode. They just added Matt Ryan. So I think with Matt Ryan, you don't have the same arm strength as a Carson Wentz, but he's a proven vet who's very accurate. And they're missing that one more reliable receiver. Pittman took a big leap last year, but if you paired Terry McLaurin with Pittman, I think that offense would be really dangerous. Obviously, they have Jonathan Taylor. I think they would be, one of the favorites to win in the AFC, if not win the Super Bowl. So I think the Colts would be a good fit. And then I also think the Ravens really need another wide receiver right now, other than Rashad Bateman. They have Mark Andrews at tight end, Bateman at wide receiver, and the rest are just scrubs, in my opinion. So there's someone that could really use the wide receiver help. I don't know if Terry McLaurin would want to play there. We just saw Marquise Brown leave because he didn't want to play in such a run-happy offense. So maybe he doesn't want to go there, but if they're willing to pay him, if that's what he's looking for, he'll go there. Because A.J. Brown, I don't want to say Jalen Hurts is that big of a downgrade from Tannehill, but I think he is definitely a downgrade.
Yeah.
And he just went there because he wanted the money. And that's what we're seeing this offseason is a lot of wide receivers. They want to get paid. They know that's quickly becoming the second highest paid position in the NFL. So they're after the money. And, Washington hasn't really done anything to make it look like they're going to be competitive. So I don't blame him for wanting to leave. And I would say
they
those are
added Carson Wentz.
Oh, yeah. Carson is the future. He's the best.
No, I agree with those. I made a TikTok earlier today with my top destination. Jeez.
There you go.
There we go. And I actually did forget about the Colts. My top ones. Number one was the Ravens. They were first. But I do agree with what you said. Does he actually want to go there? The next team for me would be the Bears. I just think the Bears make a lot of sense. Like, it's a team that needs help. They did draft Velus Jones, but Terry McLaurin would instantly step in there and be the number one, and I think that'd be good with Darnell Mooney as well. And then two other teams that I would love to see it. I don't think it's going to happen because of the cap situation, but they could make it work with restructures and cutting some people. The first one would be the Kansas City Chiefs. They're in a win now mode, and obviously the Green Bay Packers, where next year they don't have a lot of money this year, but Terry McLaurin's cap hit wouldn't be, I think it's only like $3 million this year. And then next year they're going to have some money to play around with some guys that are probably going to get cut and restructured in the offseason. So I do think the Colts is a good one as well. So let's go ahead into the next one, and let's talk about Debo Samuel. I remember doing this show with you. I think it was one of our first shows. And I remember you talking about Debo Samuel, and I was like, man, I don't like Debo Samuel at all. So you're honestly one of the very few people that I saw touting up Debo Samuel last year. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
This year, where he's currently going, I think he's currently going as like wide receiver 8, like right around there. He's inside the top 10. Are you still in on Debo for where he's currently going this upcoming season?
Well, because I was able to get him in like the 6th and 7th round last year, it's weird. It's weird to see a guy take that big of a jump in
Right.
fantasy. But after crunching the numbers and looking at it, I don't see why he doesn't finish in the top 10 again. Um, just looking at his stats from last year, he had 77 receptions, which isn't a whole lot, but 1,400 plus receiving yards. I think he only had, what was it, 6 receiving touchdowns, but he had 365 rushing yards to go with 8 rushing touchdowns. And I think that was good enough for him to finish, I believe it was wide receiver 3.
I think 3 or 2.
Um,
Yeah.
so do I think he will be as good or as productive as he was last year? That's going to be hard to do. So I'll go ahead. I'll say no or maybe. But to say that he wouldn't finish in the top 10, I think that's a little crazy because he's just so versatile. He's a home run hitter. Losing Mike McDaniel sucks. We don't know if they're going to continue to use him how they were. But if they still go with the script they had from last year and they make sure that they're getting him involved running and receiving, I don't see why he doesn't finish top 10.
And he's another guy too. You think he deserves to get paid? I mean, all these guys. There's so many guys. DK. I mean, AJ got paid, but then you have Deontay needs to get paid. Hollywood Brown. That wide receiver class is just so good.
It is. It's deep. And for Debo, it's really tough on both sides. Like if I'm the guy who's got to cut the check for Debo, I understand why he's asking, hey, I want a lot of guaranteed money. I want a big paycheck because the year he had last year was unbelievable. And he kind of is just one of one. Like there is no
Yeah.
other Debo Samuel. Like he's just his own guy. Very, very dynamic receiver. The problem is, can you stay healthy? He wasn't that healthy his first 2 seasons in the league. He played 16 games last year, which was, in my opinion, impressive for how they were using him. And I completely understand where Debo's coming from, saying, hey, I need that guaranteed money. I want to be paid like a top elite receiver because not only is he, but he's putting a lot of wear and tear on his body. So
Right.
it's if I was Debo, I would definitely be fighting for guaranteed money. He doesn't have to be paid the highest, but he's got to lock up that guaranteed money because if they're going to use him that way, it's just a matter of time till he gets hurt, unfortunately.
I agree. And I just noticed this. That's a nice trophy in the back.
Oh, thank you. I won it year 1. I'm holding it. I got to give it to the next guy, but I'll put it up and make it look like it's mine. Look at that beaut. Yeah,
That's a nice little trophy there. All right,
thank
let's
you.
go into the next one. This is another guy you were very high on. Unfortunately, last year tore his ACL prior to the season. J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
Currently, I don't know where exactly he's going. I have the ADPs right here. I think it's like around like 18 or 20 range for the running back. Let me just double check real quick. So he's currently going as RB 21 at pick 55. So is he another guy, which is even better because last year I think he was going like the second, third round of drafts. So is he a guy, I'm assuming, that you're very interested in this upcoming season?
Absolutely. If you look at the Ravens real quick, 2019, they had the most rushing yards by a team in NFL history. 2020, 2022, I'm sorry, 2020, they averaged 34.6 yards or 34.6 attempts a game. In that 2019 season, they averaged 36 attempts or more a game. So this team loves to run the ball. They didn't have Gus Edwards and they didn't have J.K. Dobbins last year, and they still ran the ball a ton. So I think this is going to be back to like 2019, where they're going to run 35 plus times a game. They didn't have Gus or Dobbins last year, and they still ran that much. So they don't have Marquise Brown this year. Dobbins is going to get a ton of work. I don't care if Lamar Jackson runs the ball a lot. I don't care if it's a committee and they split. J.K. Dobbins going that late right now, I think he's just an absolute steal at the running back position. I'm guessing he's going around like Gibson, maybe Miles Sanders, Clyde Edward-Helaire. Like if he's going in that range, yeah, I'll take Dobbins over those guys any day.
Yeah. So right now, he's going around David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs. Gibson's going a little bit later, and so is Elijah Mitchell right now is currently going as pick 71. That's pretty crazy to me. Like I like that. 24th overall for the running back position. So, but I do think that Dobbins there, like I look at it this way. Like I think I agree with you in the sense that this team's going to run the football a lot. And there's two guys. So Josh Jacobs, he's going right around Josh Jacobs. For me, I think that Josh Jacobs is going to be two down back this upcoming season with Josh McDaniels there. So like you're basically looking at these two guys who are basically the same. The offenses are going to be pretty good for both these teams. Who's the better player? For me, it's definitely J.K. Dobbins. Like I think he's a much better player than Josh Jacobs. For that reason, I'd rather go with J.K. Dobbins over Josh Jacobs. Are you concerned at all with the ACL injury whatsoever?
No, not really. The only time I get nervous is when news comes out where the player's not healing the way the doctors expected, or when they're behind schedule. From what I'm reading, he's on schedule for just about everything. He's healing just fine. I think it was Gus Edwards who's actually coming along a little bit slower than Dobbins right now, which works in his favor. He should get more touches early on if that's the case. But I've kind of, ACL injury to me, that was like the injury of 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's still a major injury, but like it's the Achilles is the new ACL injury. You hurt your Achilles. That's when I'm worried if you're going to come back. Like Cam Akers, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much I like Cam Akers this year because that's a tough injury to come back from. And he didn't look too good when he did come back.
No.
So, I'm not that concerned. It sucks that, it was his ACL. You don't want him to hurt the same knee again, but I think he'll be fine. I'm not too worried.
And he also tore it in the preseason. So it's not like he tore it like, Michael Gallup or Chris Godwin super late in the season last season. So I think that bodes well for him as well. And what about his receiving upside? Because that's a lot of what fantasy football people that don't really like him. But I do think that for where he's going right now, I think a lot of people actually think that's pretty solid for where he's going right now. But one of the big knocks on him, obviously, is also Lamar Jackson doesn't target the running back position, one of the lowest rates in the NFL the lowest rate in the NFL since he became a starting quarterback. So are you worried about the receiving upside at all with him? And I was going to say one other thing. I do think it bodes well for J.K. Dobbins, too, that this team didn't draft a running back. I also thought that they're going to sign a guy like Sony Michel, and they didn't get him. So I think that bodes well for J.K. Dobbins and speaks as to what they think of this running back room that they currently have, that it's good enough, and they didn't even address it whatsoever.
Absolutely. I agree with that. They went and got, what was it, Mike Davis?
Yeah.
But who knows if he'll even make it through training camp
Yeah.
and preseason. He could be cut. They seem to be pretty set with Gus and Dobbins. I would say, as far as the receiving upside goes, you kind of already, like you pointed to, you already know what you're getting into with Lamar Jackson. I mean, if you have a wide receiver, running back, doesn't matter who it is, unless it's Mark Andrews, they're probably not going to get a lot of targets. But I know that he's a capable receiving back. I don't think he's bad. Mm-hmm. So if they were to decide to throw him the ball a lot, I think he would do great. But I still think that he's 1,000 yards, 8+ touchdowns on the ground alone, which where he's going, that's already RB, 15 territory. He's going RB 20. So I'm not really that concerned. If you're looking at PPR, like, yeah, maybe he drops a little bit, but I'm not that concerned.
All right, and let's go into our next segment where we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions. And real quick, what do you think they're over under? I forget what their over under is right now for wins. Got to be around like 6, I'd say.
Probably.
Do you think they go over under 6 wins?
I think they're capable of being a 7-8 win team next year. But I kind of want them to lose because I want a quarterback.
A quarterback, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think they're good. I think they're one of the upcoming young teams that no one wants to talk about.
I agree. I think that they're building something nice here, and giving Jared Goff, another year I think will only benefit them in terms of draft position, but we'll see. So let's talk about DeAndre Swift, who last year was a stud, right? Through the first 12 weeks, and then unfortunately got hurt. In the first 12 weeks of the season, he was averaging 6.5 targets per game, which was tied for the most in the NFL at the running back position with Christian McCaffrey. So Christian McCaffrey type receiving here with DeAndre Swift. How good do you think he is this upcoming season? Where do you think he finishes? Is he an absolute lock, in your opinion, to finish as a top 10 back in fantasy, barring injury?
Um, oh, barring injury, yes. I think he's for sure, in the 10 to 12 range. For PPR, it's no question he'll be a top 10, in my opinion. It still remains to be seen if they're going to run Jamal Williams as the starter. I understand, just because he's the starter doesn't mean he's going to get more touches, but I'd like to see Swift be the starter, just be that 3 down back for them and put in Williams when they need to. But that O line's actually really good. Detroit's done really good rebuilding that O line, and it's a young O line too.
Mhm.
I think that Swift, and I was looking at the strength of schedule. The Lions have a relatively easy schedule this year. That can obviously change, but just
Yeah.
basing it off of last year, it looks like sky's the limit for Swift. I think he has the capability of finishing like a RB8, RB7 this year. So top 10, I feel very comfortable, especially in PPR.
And a guy that came on late in the scene last year with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know he's a guy that you like. Currently, are you in on him at wide? He's currently going as wide receiver 33 around guys like Michael Thomas. Antonio Gibson's going right around there. And I think it's like ADP of 60 range, somewhere around there. Joe Burrow, Dalton Schultz. Is he a guy that you would take over those guys, or would you lean a different way?
Well, I mean, I definitely take Gibson over him. I mean, I'm a
I think
RB
Gibson's
homer.
going. Gibson's getting a lot of hate right now, and he's.
I
I
don't know
think it's going
why.
to be so much hate that he's just going to be such a good value. Like currently going as pick 67. I mean, even Elijah Mitchell pick 71. I just think that's like two guys that are really solid values for there. But anyways, so you don't like him there, but how do you feel about him? You think he's still a really solid fantasy wide receiver?
I think he could be like a wide receiver 3 on your team. I would not be confident with him as my wide receiver 2. They added a bunch of weapons. They got DJ Chark. They obviously they drafted Jamison Williams, who should be their stud wide receiver moving forward. So the targets, there's not as many to go around now. And Quintez Cephas, he was hurt last year. He's actually a pretty solid wide receiver for them. So the room's crowded. There's not as many. There's too many mouths to feed, in my opinion. So I don't think that he can be your wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 3, yes. Detroit, they usually play from behind. They're gonna have to throw the ball, and they didn't even have Goff the whole year last year. He was hurt. He was banged up. So if Goff were to play the whole year, amon-ra, yeah, wide receiver 3. And I'd have to look to see who else is going around him at the wide receiver position. Like Michael Thomas, who knows what the hell that guy's going to do? Who knows if he's even going to play? He should.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Let me see. There's a couple.
like I would
other
take
guys.
Gabe Davis. If Gabe Davis is going in that range, I'd probably take Gabe Davis. I would take like Elijah Moore. I'm not 100% sure who's
He's
in that,
going
like,
right around there. Yeah, he's going
Yeah.
pick 66 right now. Amon-Ra is 68.
Yeah, I'd
Drake
probably
London,
take those guys.
Devontae Smith is right there too. Those are 3 guys.
I'd probably take all those guys over him.
Gabe
And
Davis
it's no
is going
knock on his
as
talent.
pick. He's going as wide receiver 24 at pick 50 right now. Where Gabe Davis?
Amon-Ra?
No, Gabe Davis. That's where he's currently going. Yeah, that's where
I'm on the Gabe Davis train, but geez.
He's going ahead of like. I don't know how you feel about Browns play, but he's going ahead of Amari Cooper, Rashad Bateman, Chris Godwin, he's banged up. Brandon Cooks, Juju Smith-Schuster, all those guys where he's currently going.
I don't understand the Amari Cooper hate. Brandon Cooks had an excellent season last year, and Davis Mills was throwing him the ball. Like,
Yeah.
Whether Deshaun plays or not, I mean, Amari Cooper is a stud receiver, and he's the number 1. No Jarvis, no OBJ, obviously. Like he is the wide receiver there. So I don't understand that.
All right, and well, one other thing I do want to note is that, and with some of these guys, it does take, especially rookies, later in the season is when they break out. But it was interesting for me that we didn't really see Amon-Ra St. Brown break out until DeAndre Swift got hurt. Is when it happened, and the reason why I think it happened is just because he's more of a possession wide receiver. He's closer to the line of scrimmage. when you have, TJ Hawkinson banged up and you have DeAndre Swift banged up, who else are you going to lean on at that point? Also, the wide receiver room for that team was just not very good, especially towards the end of the season when a lot of them are banged up. And then, like you said, you add these other guys into the mix. Swift is healthy. Hawkinson is healthy. I just don't think there's enough targets to go around in this offense when you look at the other guys. For him to be drafted there, like you're looking at guys right now, Elijah Moore was a stud. Darnell Mooney, the wide receiver one on his team. Drake London, wide receiver one. Devontae Smith, he's right there. But I just personally am out on him. But he is going lower than where he was earlier. Like earlier, he was going a lot higher. Amon-Ra St. Brown was. So he is falling down, and it's even itself out where he's not that bad of a value compared to where he was. Like earlier, he was going where Gabe Davis was, which totally, I was out on that. But
it's all recency. But I mean, if you look at what Amon-Ra did in his last like 8 games of the season last year, I mean, he was probably like wide receiver 12 based on a per game basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen again. It was just, like you said, perfect scenario for him where everyone's hurt. They need to rely on someone short, just a possession receiver who's the quarterback going to cozy up to, like a reliable guy.
Especially Goff.
Yeah, especially Goff. The best.
All right, so let's talk about TJ Hawkinson. He's currently going as tight end 7. He's going, let me double check this. I'm pretty sure he's tight end 7. I believe he's going after Dalton Schultz. Yeah. So he's going 14 picks after Dalton Schultz. He's currently going at pick 84. Tight end number 7, 84. Around guys like I have Miles Sanders. Let me just double check here too. I want to make sure this is completely up to date. But I have Miles Sanders, TJ Hawkinson right around Miles Sanders, Russell Gage, Hunter Renfrow, Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, Christian Kirk. How do you like him in that range?
I still think he's one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. He gets no love.
Especially after last year. A lot of people are definitely out on him after last year. I felt like a lot of people felt burned by him after last season.
And it's because of injuries, I mean, in week 5, he got that knee injury against the Vikings, and then he hurt his hand around like week 12 or 13, and eventually was just shut down for the rest of the year. He played in, I believe, 12 games, and in 4 of them, he was questionable or doubtful. And if you look at his stats, he had 8 of his 12 games, 8 or more targets. Like the volume was there, and he finished with 4 touchdowns, 500 some yards. Not the best season. But, if he played a full season last year and if he stayed healthy, there's no doubt in my mind he was going to be a top 6 fantasy tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He's an awesome red zone target. Great talent. But it's kind of like with the Amon-Ra thing. If there's all these mouths to feed, how many targets is he going to get? Like, is he going to be a double-digit target guy? I don't think so. But he is a reliable weapon for Jared Goff to throw to. I just underrated talent. I still like him where he's going. I love him for Dynasty where he's going. People are sleeping on him in Dynasty leagues, but I'd probably take Dalton Schultz over him right now. I wouldn't take Goddard over him. I mean, Schultz could have a really big year if you think about it.
No, I do like Schultz. I think for me, I do think that I feel like he's rated appropriate because I'd rather have him over like the other guys like Dallas Goedert, Dawson Knox, Zach Ertz, like those guys. I think he's right there with Schultz. It's just I agree with you that I think he's a really good talent, and it's just obviously handicapped because of the situation with Jared Goff. There are people in this offense, but I will say that last year. He had a 21% target share, right? 21% target share, which was 5th amongst all tight ends. So he, like you said, he was still seeing volume. And on a points per game basis last year, he was tight end 7. He averaged 12.1 fantasy points per game. And right now at pick 80, like I think that's solid value for a guy who last year was being drafted, in the 5th round. Now, once again, we're also looking at ADP in the sense that a lot of people that are drafting right now are very savvy fantasy people. A lot of your casual people aren't drafting right now. And once August hits, like ADP is going to fluctuate massively. But I do think where he's currently going, I think he's a solid value for these other guys going around him, like Miles Sanders. If at that point you already have a couple running backs on your roster, and you need a tight end, I think TJ Hawkinson in that range for a guy who could be a top 5 tight end, possibly a top 3 if he stays healthy a full season. He's a guy that I really like there.
And what you just said there, it's if he can stay healthy. I think a lot of people who follow the Lions and a lot of people who are, like you said, they're doing fantasy football already. Those I don't want to call them degenerates. I'll call them junkies. We know how good he is. It's just, are you going to burn me with injuries? If you can't stay healthy, I'm not drafting you because tight end's such a hard position to come by. You're not going to reach on someone who, only plays 50% of the games in a season. That's
Right.
just stupid.
Right.
But I definitely think, if I could just turn injuries off and just let the season play out, Hawkinson is for sure top 10 tight end, no doubt. And then I would probably put him in that 6 or 7 spot, only behind those studs. Like you got Kelsey, you got Andrews, Kittle, Waller, and then then it's Pitts, and then right after that I would Schultz, Hawkinson. So like 6-7 range for me for Hawkinson, and the ADP a little too high. I'm not going to take tight ends that early. I think there's a lot of deep value at tight end this year, a lot of sleepers. So
no, I agree. I think there's quite a few that I personally really like. Well, we'll talk about them soon. We'll get into sleepers and that stuff.
All right.
And are there any other are you interested in any other players on the Lions for fantasy football this upcoming season? For redraft, we'll just talk redraft.
Oh, Devin Funches for sure. No, I'm just kidding. Jameson Williams, I would say, is an interesting player. I think he is officially the most talented wide receiver or pass catcher on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome deep threat. I think he's going to be better than Chark as a deep threat. I think he's just has the he could be the best wide receiver in this draft class.
I think he has a massive ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's very gifted after the catch too. Like he's really good.
He's a great deep threat. If you watched him in college, like the guy's got jets and good size.
I think his comp is Will Fuller. So
let's just hope he's not made of glass. But I think he has a ton of upside this year.
Is he going to be ready for the start of the season, you think?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. A lot of people were questioning whether he would be ready because he had that ACL injury late.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was against Georgia when he got hurt.
Yeah. Wasn't it the championship game? Or was it? Yeah, that was a championship
game. It was either the championship game or when they played.
Because I think Messi got hurt too. I think both John Messi and him.
You know what? That's what it was. Messi got hurt, I think, in the championship, in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams got hurt in the actual national championship. Mm-hmm. But he's someone that, just keep an eye on. If he's fallen really late in the draft, like if he's there at 10, 11, I'm scooping him immediately. I think he has wide receiver 2, 3 upside all day.
I want to see where he's currently going.
I know in best ball, he's going like in a 10-man league, he's going like 10, 11, 12 round.
Yeah, he's going 12th round right now. Pick 121 is currently where he's going in best ball.
Yeah,
and that's what I just look at best ball just because I feel like it's the most accurate right now. Just because who's really doing Yahoo drafts? Majority of the time, it's about 3 people are actually in a Yahoo draft, and the others are computers picking.
Yeah, and kickers are going in like the 9th round.
Yeah, it's so stupid. All right. So any other final thoughts, real quick? What about? Oh, I do have here wide receivers that are going later. So how do you feel about these guys? Michael Gallup. What do you think about Michael Gallup right now?
I think Gallup. I do. I think he could have a huge year. I understand we're waiting for the injury news to come out. Like, is he going to be ready to go? I don't think he misses more than like 1 or 2 weeks. And I think he could be just an absolute steal this year. You can get him as like your 4th or 5th receiver you're drafting, and he could finish number 2 or 3 on your team. He's someone who's going late. He's going to be in a pass-happy offense. They no longer have Amari
Right.
Cooper. So if someone needs to get those targets, everyone's looking at CeeDee Lamb. Everyone's looking at Dalton Schultz. I'm looking at Michael Gallup. I think he can have a big year for the Cowboys this year.
And I see you have Juju too. I do like Juju. I think
Yeah,
he's the I would say the wide receiver one on that team. Obviously, Travis Kelce, the number one, but a lot. And we talked about this yesterday on the show when I had Dan on. He was talking about, and I agree in the sense that a lot of people forget that with a good Ben Roethlisberger, the last time we saw Big Ben before his elbow injury, I mean, the Juju was a top 10 wide receiver. Like, a lot of people forget about that. And then he gets, Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph and a ghost of Big Ben, and he kind of gets banged up. Well, now he gets Patrick Mahomes. Like, I love him. You feel the same way?
absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. And I hear a lot of people go, well, you see what happened to Juju and they didn't have Antonio Brown and they could just focus on him. Hello, they still have Travis Kelce.
Right.
Like,
he's
they're not
the
going
number
to just
one.
focus on Juju. Exactly. Right. And they added Vance Scanling, who I think,
he's good defense.
Exactly. He's going to be able to stretch the defense, not as well as Tyreek Hill, obviously, but Andy Reid will figure out how to use that guy. And exactly. I just think Juju, where he's going right now, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Juju finished as a like top 10 wide receiver. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So where he's going, I think he's an absolute steal.
And then on top of that too is that it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, they're one of the most pass happy teams in the NFL. And then you also look at their division. Like, the AFC is stacked. Like, they're going to probably be playing shootout after shootout after shootout this upcoming season. And one other thing is that a lot of people don't realize that he's a very, very good red zone target too. Like, he's a massive dude that plays in the slot, is able to beat up on a lot of these slot corners in the NFL because of his size. So, like, I think that he's just in a perfect situation with, like you said, with Andy Reid, who's going to be able to put him in the best situation to win. And you have Allen Lazard here. How do you feel about him?
This is another guy I think everyone's sleeping on. That's like kind of with like what I said about Michael Gallup, someone who's going as the maybe fourth or fifth wide receiver you're drafting on your team who could finish as the second or third. We all know that Aaron Rodgers is a stud and he's going to throw the ball and he's going to put it on the money. Lazard is now the wide receiver one on that team. I know they got that rookie. Is it Christian Watson or something?
Christian Watson.
Sometimes wide receivers that are rookies have all the talent in the world, but they just don't pan out. And I know this guy's super talented, but he didn't play for a big name school for a reason. He wasn't a really sought after recruit.
Pretty sure he's
not saying
super
that he's
senior
not good.
too. Like, I'm pretty sure he's 23 years old already.
I mean, I don't know.
That has to count for something.
I would agree. It's not like people are like, once he's a junior, we're taking him. Keep your eye on that guy. No, I mean, he could be really good, and having Rodgers is certainly going to help him. But Sammy Watkins gets hurt all the time. Lazard does get hurt a lot too. I mean, that is something you got to keep your eye on, or at least think about. But Lazard is the number one guy there. Like 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. Definitely doable. And if you get that out of a wide receiver that's going in the 9th round, that's awesome. I mean, just keep an eye on Lazard. That's a sleeper pick for me. And I don't even want to say sleeper because a lot of people are like, oh, well, who's going to get the ball there? Lazard. Yeah. Well, why aren't people drafting him like that? They're just waiting too long to take him.
No, and I agree. And how it's actually changed now, which is good because Christian Watson was going ahead of Allen Lazard, ADP wise, which is good because now Allen Lazard is. But I do agree, and I think that a lot of people look at what Allen Lazard has done throughout his career and really hasn't done anything. But he's also had Devontae Adams, and if there's one guy that could all of a sudden just blow up, where he goes from like a 10% target share throughout his entire career, now all of a sudden to like 20%. I feel like that if there's one guy this upcoming season who that guy could be, it could definitely be Allen Lazard. And the reasons why you just said, I mean, he gets to play with Aaron Rodgers. There's limited target competition. And what we know about Aaron Rodgers too is that Aaron Rodgers will shun people. If they drop the ball or don't do what he wants them to do, he shuns them. And he could very well do that with Christian Watson. And Allen Lazard is now one of his longest tenured. He obviously has Randall Cobb, but one of his longest tenured wide receivers, big bodied guy, good red zone target. I feel like that is a guy that I could definitely see as being a guy that goes from this small number now all of a sudden massive breakout. Makes sense. So with that being said, is there anything else? Any final?
Yeah, that's it for now. Can't wait to talk tight ends though. Tight end. I'm the tight end whisperer this year.
I like it. I call myself the running back whisperer. But all right. So with that being said, I appreciate you coming on, dude. I appreciate the time. You'll definitely be back. We'll talk fantasy football leading up to the draft. So I appreciate you coming on, dude.
No problem. Anytime. Glad to be here.
Thank you to everybody for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Everybody, have a great day. Peace out.